Logical reasoning. I consider myself to be much more like Forrest Gump than I am not a educated man.
I love that movie.
That is a good movie.
Never seen it. Never seen it.
So jot this down here. This is talking about statements and reasoning and hypothesis and whatever stuff. If you look at page 320, please, that's where I'd like for you to be. It says recall from investigation 4 that a conditional statement, did we do investigation 4? Yeah, we did. Hypothesis, conclusion? Seems like we did. For any conditional statement, a converse, inverse, and contrapositive can be written, and that's what we talk about. And you need to write these notes because I can tell you right now, just in my mind, I don't know what either one of those three are. I mean, I know what they're supposed to be, but wait, Mary, did you actually rip it out of your notebook so there's no possible way of putting it back in your notebook? Because that right there doesn't use logical reasoning to me. Here we go. First one is converse. Just like the shoes. In the book there it says converse is when the order of the hypothesis and the conclusion is reversed. The order is reversed. In other words, this. Let's look at the statement they give us there. If a figure is a triangle, then it has 3 sides. If a figure is a triangle, then it has 3 sides. Okay, there is your statement there. If you were asked to give the converse of that, it just simply means that you flip the statements around. In other words, instead of saying if a figure is a triangle, it has 3 sides, you would say if a triangle has 3 sides, then it's a triangle. So the converse. What's that?
You mean if a figure has 3 sides?
Oh, sure, whatever I said is wrong.
Okay, so if a triangle has 3 sides, then it's a
Sorry,
triangle.
yeah. If a figure, if a figure has 3 sides, then it's a triangle. If a figure has 3 sides, then it is a triangle. Now, in this case, is the converse true? Yes. All 3-sided shapes are triangles. It doesn't matter if you flip it over. Are there some things where the converse isn't true?
Yes. Yes.
For example,
If you have chocolate.
no,
If
like
something is a
this.
circle, it's a orange.
Yeah, all oranges are circular. Are all circular things oranges? No. So that's converse. And then we have the inverse. Inverse. The inverse of something is when it is when you negate both the hypothesis and the conclusion. Yeah, it means make its opposite. In other words, of the statement we just made there, if a figure is a triangle, then it has 3 sides. The negation of that would be if a figure is not a triangle, then it does not have 3 sides.
What does that say? Negate?
Negates. So the inverse of that statement that we just gave right there would say if a figure is not a triangle, then it does not have three sides. Now, the question I have for you, is that true? Is the inverse true? If a figure does not have three sides, if the figure is not a triangle, does it not
Yes.
have three sides? Would that be true?
True.
Correct, because the other way would be, yeah. And then the last one they're gonna give you is the,
So if it's the inverse of a negative thing, so then it's positive.
you're doing the inverse of the converse?
Yeah.
Alright, let's not get to that point till we get to that point. Let's not make our minds more.
Okay.
Then we've got the last one here they talk about, which is the contrapositive.
What? A contrapositive.
Sounds like Neapolitan.
Yes, it's exactly like Neapolitan ice cream.
So both,
We should, that sounds awesome.
The contrapositive switches the hypothesis and conclusion and negates it. So in other words, it puts both of these together. Okay, so you do both things. The contrapositive of this would be you switch and you say, if a figure does not have three sides, then it is not a triangle. So it's really just the inverse reversed. It's the inverse conversed, I guess is what it would be.
so excuse my head, so many problems.
So
It's like what they're saying.
it's a combination of those two there. It does two things. It where did I go? You reverse the order,
The inverse goes down.
you reverse and negate.
Or figures not besides what it's like.
So it would look like this. And again, we don't run across this a whole lot, but it does happen there. So with our original one, we do the second one first. The figure's a triangle that has three sides. You have to negate the second one, which is if a figure does not have three sides, if a figure does not have three sides, then it is not a triangle. Which I believe would also be true. Not.
Do you drink black coffee?
I do, as opposed to
He
green
drinks cappuccinos.
or pink. No, I'm not a cappuccino.
But
Negative, negative, negative. Alright, here we go. You got that written down?
Yep.
Because now take a look at some of the ones in the book there. Problem number 1 says, write the converse. So the first thing we do is look at a converse. What does the converse do? It just reverses the order. Okay. So if the statement is, if a number ends in 5, then it is a multiple of 5. If you were asked to write the converse of that, that means you just reverse the order they're given, and you would say, Lizzie, lead 'em.
If a number is a multiple of 5, then it ends in 5.
Alright, and is that true?
No.
Yes, it is. If a number ends in 5, it's going to be a multiple of 5, isn't it? Give me an example.
Yeah.
Well, 5 ends in 5, and it ends in 0.
That's so true.
Yeah.
So
Oh.
If
Yeah.
a number is a multiple of 5, then it ends in 5. Oh, that's, which probably is. Well, it doesn't say,
Workable.
you're right. Because it could end with a 0, so it would be false. Let me look and see. Wait, let me look at my answers for number 1. I don't have answers for number 1.
That's so multiple 5.
Wait, if a number is a multiple of 5, then it ends in 5. No, that would be false, because if you can give, and here's what they say. Okay, if you can give a counter example, like that, now we've talked about that before. A counter example is an example that proves something false. And a counter example for that statement there would be just putting the number 30. Wait,
What
wait,
does that even say?
because the number 30 is a multiple of 5, but it doesn't end in 5, so that proves that statement, that makes that statement false. That converse,
Oh,
That-
false.
Yeah, this is false.
I was like, what?
where does it say false? Proves false.
Alex Ryder thinks there's a way to true and false into the same thing.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, that-
You mean like on a quiz, you go like
I
this?
can't find the S.
Yeah.
I see
I see it.
We're
I see what
how
you're
to
saying.
get it
I
wrong
saw it.
right every time.
Yeah.
I'm like,
No, you write the whole thing. You write the
Stop.
whole word.
Number 2,
Yeah,
write
like that.
the contrapositive. Remember, contrapositive does both reverse and negates of this statement. If two lines are parallel, then they do not meet.
True.
If two lines are parallel, then they do not meet. If you reverse it and negate it, what do you say? If two lines meet, they are not parallel. And can you give an example of two lines that would meet that would not be parallel? That would be parallel?
They smash into each other.
Would that one be true or false? Contrapositive, true or false?
True.
Who says true, who says false?
I say true. I'm just calling
one's parallel.
And again, the way to think about it is you need to try to give an example. So what was the statement we made? We said that if two lines meet, if two lines meet, then what?
They are
They are, we have to negate it, they are not parallel.
They could be
Now, so, can you give an example of two lines that meet that would be parallel?
intersect.
Yeah, but they wouldn't be
Perpendicular.
parallel, but they wouldn't be parallel. You have to give an example of two lines that would meet, but they don't meet. They have to meet, the two lines would have to cross.
Perpendicular?
Right, and are those lines parallel?
Yeah.
No, you're talking about the two lines that meet. You could only use this line with this line, that line with that line.
No, that's false.
So this is true. If two lines
Alright.
meet, then they are not parallel.
I don't know how to.
It's a little bit of thinking, that's why we don't do a lot. But number 3, what is the inverse of this? If it is Monday, then I will go to school. Inverse means you negate both of them, which says if it is,
School.
Depends.
If it's
see,
school.
if it,
I'll go to
if
school
it is not Monday,
I'm not going.
I will not go to school.
Well, what if it's Tuesday?
Exactly, that's the contrapositive. On Tuesday you go to school, so that is
And you don't
False.
go to school
don't always go to
necessarily
school.
every Monday.
true.
Yeah, like a magazine.
You have to
It's so like annoying. I miss like